to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Music Mindset channel. Hey, I want to thank all my subscribers and especially my members. I want to hear from you guys on the Music Mindset channel. Today we're going to get into a story. The other day we talked about Bernie Worrell and the effect that he had on Parliament and Funkadelic and stuff like that. And today we got to get in the other side of it with Junie Morrison. A lot of people don't think about it at a certain point in the time that Bernie Worrell was the music director for Funkadelic. But then Junie Morrison came on and he became the music director. They were kind of both co-music directing. Bernie's got a personality where he's like, hey man, you know what, y'all do what y'all do, just pay me. But Junie kind of took over there a little bit when they came on that album, One Nation Under Groove, and those type of songs like that, you know what I mean? But hey, I tell you what, they're both incredible. And when you saw them perform live together, you knew that Funkadelic had a backbone that nobody could break. Man, what you smacking so loud, man? What you eating on over there?
Taco Bell, bruh.
Dad?
Yeah, man. You need something?
Oh, I'm cool, man. I don't need no like that, man. That stuff gonna tear your stomach up. Watch. And I tell you what.
I gotta go take a boo-boo.
Man, don't funk up the bathroom. Anyway, we're gonna get into this Junie Morrison story, man. This story took me a while to put together, man, because there's so many tangents involved with this guy. This guy was incredible. If you think Bernie Worrell is hot and notable, which he is, Junie Morrison, man, oh man, hang around.
You can fly off by and by.
Now that's just some of what this fella can do on vocals and with music. It's more like an interlude than a full song, but it shows you why he blew the minds of the people in the funk scene back in the day. You gotta search for Nagarwal's Theme by Junie on YouTube and see what I'm talking about. The track aligns with a period in his career where he was moving beyond standard funk formulas to communicate a wider range of personal and almost transcendental emotions. But when it comes to that real funk that he was a part of and known for, and to fully understand the genius of Walter Junie Morrison, you have to go back to Dayton, Ohio in the late 1950s. This was a hard-working city built on factories, unions, and discipline, a place where music was not a hobby, it was survival, especially for the young black youth. Dayton was producing musicians who treated rehearsal like a job, and mistakes like disrespect. Walter Junie Morrison was born on June 28, 1954, in Dayton, Ohio. This was a place where the kids were constantly reminded of the Wright brothers and believing they could all fly. But while most kids his age were outside riding bikes and dreaming about the sky, Junie stayed inside, locked in with the sound of music. He was not classically trained, he was self-taught, obsessive, and fearless. The funk from the area had a strong connection to gospel music from the beginning, and Junie began playing piano in church when he was just 4 years old, playing for a baby church choir. That same baby choir was also comprised of some of the future members of Lakeside and Heatwave. Crazy, right? This young fella did not just learn instruments, he mastered them. Piano, keyboards, drums, guitar, and bass. Junie saw music in colors and shapes, and by the time he was a teenager, he managed to become student choir director and orchestra conductor at Roosevelt High School. Yeah, man, most of the 13 or so bands from Dayton signed to major labels were inspired by the creative opportunities offered by Roosevelt and a few other fine schools in the city. Junie was now not just playing in bands, he was quietly directing them. This city at that time had become a full-blown funk incubator, and the Ohio players were the big boys in town. As a requirement from school, he had to attend music events in the area, and he chose to go see the Ohio players instead of just boring stage plays. He was blown away. He later got the chance to play at a televised event where the Ohio players were performing, and he was a little afraid, but he was going to show that his stuff was up to par. Well, it worked, because Junie blew their minds and soon found himself inside the most advanced band in the area while he was still a teenager, but his musical understanding was way beyond his years. The Ohio players were impressed because they were comprised of a rhythm section with 2 horn players, and they had never worked with a keyboard player before, so Junie would be something they thought they were missing. This kid understood arrangement, song structure, and studio discipline. More importantly, he knew how to take raw street funk and polish it without stripping away its grit. But the funny thing is, he had to start out on horns because he didn't own the right keyboard at first. But that soon changed, and the quick shift to music director announced itself to the world with this record.
Hey, it's in my heart, baby.
That was Pain in 1972. Now, this track didn't have any of the gadgets yet. It was built on a thick dragon bass line and a somber piano that made you feel the weight of the streets. It proved the Ohio Players were serious musicians who could command the charts with pure atmosphere. But Junie wasn't the type to sit still. Once he had the world's attention with that heavy sound, he went looking for something completely different.
Oh, that's funky, that's funky.
That high-pitched talking synth line was Junie on an ARP Pro Soloist, a keyboard he found in a shop somewhere in New York City, not a Moog, and he was using its preset voice filters and bending them into a thin nasal character he called Granny.
Something like this.
That sound was playful on the surface, but musically revolutionary. It later became a direct influence on West Coast producers, including Dr. Dre, when shaping the talking synth leads and high-register funk textures that define G-Funk. By January 1974, the Ohio Players were winning publicly, but the street-level truth is something most people miss. There is a common belief that Junie walked away from the group to chase a bigger check. Yeah, there were problems, but in reality, he never truly left. This according to interviews with Red Bull, where he clearly laid out the facts. Even as the band signed with Mercury Records and prepared to dominate the charts with hits like Fire and Love Roller Coaster, Junie was still in the lab with them. They continued to work on projects together that the public never got to hear, and some of the players even showed up to play on Junie's solo records later on. He didn't abandon the ship, he just started navigating a different course. That course led him directly into the P-Funk universe. Some call it joining the band, but according to Junie, it was really more of an organic collaboration. He'd run into Bootsy Collins in Detroit, and Bootsy would be shouting about Junie coming to lay down some tracks. But the real bridge was Gary Scheider. Gary was the one who truly brought Junie into that fold and helped smooth over the tension that naturally comes when a new heavyweight enters a room full of egos.
Junie is one of the most phenomenal musicians you'll ever see. I can remember his first day with the group in the studio was One Nation. He came with a full stock. I mean, he had done the Ohio Players, he had done all of that stuff with them, Funky Worm, and he was, a phenomenal musician. But when he got in this group, it looked like he took a Johnny step and went up.
When you look at the birth of a masterpiece like One Nation Under a Groove, you have to understand how the room actually functioned. Many people imagine George Clinton at the center of that storm, directing every note. But according to Junie's own words, George wasn't even there when the track was born. It was Junie Morrison and Gary Scheider who laid the foundation. Bootsy and Bernie added their flavors at a later time, but the arrangement, the actual DNA of that song, was all Junie's work. On that entire album, Junie acted as the hidden architect. He was matching the tracks to the right singers, deciding which voice fit which vibration. When the track for Who Says a Funk Band needed something unique, Junie didn't look for a committee. He stepped up and did the lead vocals himself under one of his many alter egos, like J.S. Theracon. The most misunderstood moment in funk history is not just Knee Deep.
Like Knee Deep, I used to sing Knee Deep as a traveling song. I never intended to record it. So nobody can dance to that, Junie heard me. Junie say, "Oh, it can be arranged. It can be arranged, man. I tell you what, sing it again." I just sung it to him a cappella. He came back a couple of days later, and he brought me a tape. He said, "Sing it to this." And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, right. I sang the song and everything that I've been doing like for probably 3-4 years. I didn't have no problem. They fall right in. It fell right where it's supposed to fall. And I'm like, how the heck do you do this? Oh, it can be arranged, man. It can be arranged.
Now, don't let the videos fool you about this song. To this day, fans see Bernie Worrell playing and give him the credit, but Bernie wasn't on that studio session. And you might see the legendary Gary Scheider in that diaper holding down the vocals on stage, or you might see Felipe Wynn featured, just jumping around and catching the spirit. But when they were in the lab recording, It was Felipe Wynn's voice that gave that record its soul, and it was Junie Morrison who stitched it all together to make it a hit. The reason you don't see Junie Morrison's name properly credited is a mix of misinformation and deliberate creative accounting behind the scenes. When you look at those old record sleeves, you won't see Junie's name where it belongs. That wasn't an accident. Between George gifting credits to his own son and a label that was in a dead sprint to get that wax into the stores, the paperwork was fixed before Junie could even blow the whistle. By the time the ink was dry, the money was already moving into other people's bank accounts, and the history books were being written with the wrong names. It's a tragedy of the business, but today we're setting the record straight. And while George Clinton was a master of the big idea and a genius at upstaging, the truth is he wasn't an arranger and didn't play the instruments. Junie stated, "Without the creative muscle of the unsung members of P-Funk, George would have struggled to write his way out of a paper bag." George recognized the talent, but Junie provided the map on this project.
Hi, everybody. This is Granny. I know you remember me.
Now, as the 80s arrived, Junie saw the rise of technology coming. On his track Techno Freaks, he used early samplers and the super expensive Synclavier. He wasn't afraid of the machines, but he did offer a speculative prophecy that technology could have a dehumanizing effect, leading to a one-groove-fits-all format where no one is truly listening or dancing anymore. So, he never lost his analog chops. Eventually, Junie recognized the pattern of the industry and moved to London, England. He wanted to get away from the noise and the credit battles that were draining his spirit. That is where he leaned fully into the name J.S. Theracon. Some try to make that name sound like a deep philosophy, but it was simply a code for the raw connection. It was his way of working as a ghost producer and consultant for the biggest stars in the world without the weight of his own name getting in the way. He wanted the music to be the only thing that mattered. If you didn't know, Junie Morrison was responsible for the success of groups and artists such as Soul II Soul, Sounds of Blackness, the pop royalty of George Michael, the cutting-edge rock of the Eurythmics, and even Pat Benatar. He brought that grit to the group Primal Scream and a soulful edge to Nina Cherry. He was also a guiding force behind the massive gospel soul fusion of Kirk Franklin and God's Property, and he provided the secret sauce for the electronic sounds of the group called The Orb. Even the modern brilliance of Solange Knowles was touched by his hand, and she made sure the world knew his name on her album called A Seat at the Table. Around the mid-2000s, Solange first encountered Junie's music in a studio session with Raphael Saadiq. He played Junie's track Super Spirit, and she made him run it back, again and again. She listened to it on a loop for nearly an hour. Later, she said the music and lyrics were tapping into spiritual frequencies she couldn't quite explain. But it wasn't just the sound that moved her. As she began learning Junie's story, a visionary who helped build foundational elements of modern funk, yet was so often undercredited, she felt compelled to reach out, and she did. They began speaking periodically over the years, mostly by phone and email. From a distance, Junie became a quiet source of encouragement in her life. Their conversations often ended the same way, with a shared mantra, ever funking on. When Solange released her tribute, Junie had already heard it. He got to experience it privately a few days before the world did. In a 2016 interview, he said he was taken aback and deeply appreciative, calling her a young artist with a whole funkload of talent. Man, this dude was the architect working in the shadows, making the great sound even greater, and now you know the funk was underneath them all. But, as we've seen on this channel time after time, nothing lasts forever. And unfortunately, neither would the beloved Junie Morrison. Yeah, y'all, Walter Junie Morrison passed away on January 21st, 2017, in London, England, at the age of 62. His passing did not dominate the headlines, and according to his daughter he had with Lynn Avery of the Brides of Funkenstein, that was exactly how he wanted it. For a short period of time, Junie Morrison had been married to Kate Garner, the singer from Hazy Fantasy, but they parted, and he spent his final years in London living a very private life. Junie was a creator who never needed the spotlight to validate his genius. Walter Junie Morrison was the everything man, and funk history simply does not make sense without him. The giants of the industry felt the loss immediately. Musicians from every corner of the globe knew that a pillar of the funk had fallen. Today, the legacy of Walter Junie Morrison is more alive than it has ever been. He was the bridge between the grit of the Dayton, Ohio street corner and the high-tech precision of the modern studio. He proved that one disciplined mind could outwork a whole committee. Yeah, man, that's a mouthful right there. That's a story, man. And I told much as I could. We didn't even get into all the songs that he has, the solo projects and the groups that he worked with. Just couldn't get it all in a couple of minutes, you know what I'm saying? But look at some of those songs, man. I was surprised when I went back and tried to reminisce on some of the songs he did. His style is so much like the way I like to write songs, man. You know, you can write a funk song that doesn't have to be so rough. You know, he had a lot of smooth, intelligent vocals and smooth arrangements along with the funky stuff, you know what I mean? Hey, I hope you appreciate that on the Music Mindset channel. I'm going to check you guys out next time. Thanks.